Hey everyone, in this lesson we are going to talk about function return types. We have the same function from our previous couple of lessons, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the function return types in this context. Now, to tell you what a function return type is, we're just going to go ahead and we're going to hover on the name of the function. And let's try to understand this. When we hover on the name of this function, we can see that we have the function keyword, the function name, and then we have the function parameter block. So within the function parameters, we have an ID that has a type of number, a name that has a type of string, we have a department parameter type string, and then the function's return type is also string. So this colon that comes after the parenthesis, it basically signifies what the function is going to return. By return, I mean this. So when we return department, since department is a string, it is going to return a string. I could delete this and I could say return ID. And now if I take a look at the return type, we can see that since ID is a number, the function return type has adjusted itself accordingly. And TypeScript knows that because ID is a number and TypeScript knows, okay, if it returns ID, it means that the function is returning a number. And one more thing I just wanted to mention here, since we specify since we provide a default value for this parameter, if we go ahead and get rid of this type, it is still going to know that the type of department has to be a string. We can see that if we create another employee variable, employee3, and I'm going to call in the function employee name. Let's say this is 103, and let's call this employee Jack. And I'm going to pass in for the department, I'm going to pass in 400. And then there is going to be an error. Why? Because it says argument of type number is not assignable to parameter of type string. What is it talking about? It is talking about this department. The department's type is inferred correctly. It is of type string. So when it is of type string, you cannot pass in a number there. This is going to result in a type error. So when you have a default parameter in a function declaration and you want to maybe keep things shorter, you can just let TypeScript infer the value, and most of the times that is going to be correct. I just wanted to tell you that you can do that as well. Now, if I hover on the name of this function, there are two things that are the focus of this lesson. One is the function return type, and the other is this question mark. This question mark signifies that this parameter has a default value. Therefore, it is optional to pass an argument for it. This question mark is called the optional flag in TypeScript. And we're going to see this again when we get to talking about objects in TypeScript, TypeScript objects. It is basically optional. It means that it has a value. You could provide a value for it, like employee2, or you could just not provide any value for it and not provide, any argument for it, like in employee1. It is still going to work. And we saw that depending on what the function returns, the return type of the function is going to change. Now, as a best practice, it is a good idea to make sure to type annotate what the return type of the function is going to be. We don't want the function to keep switching between types. So I'm going to comment this one out so you can have that. And in here, I'm going to specify the function either returns a string, it returns a number, or whatever. What does it return? For example, in this specific scenario, I want the function to return a string. And that string, I want it to be the department of that specific employee. So we have one employee, we have two employees. If we jump into the browser, we can see we have dev, we have HR. If we want the function to return a number, the only number here we have is ID. So we can just say, I could maybe comment this one out, make another copy so you have this as a reference. Let's say we want to return ID from the function. We need to make sure that is what the function's return type is annotated to. So if I save this, if we take a look at that, the employee 1's ID is 101, and you can see it's blue because this is a type of number. And the employee 2's ID is 102. Cool. So I think I did talk about everything that I wanted to, and just a couple of things you need to keep in mind when it comes to function return types is that the reason that we try to type annotate the function return type, one is to make sure that we return the correct type from that function. And now functions could get really, really complicated in medium to large sized applications. That gives us the second reason for type annotating a function. And that is when you take a look at the function declaration, the function definition, you immediately understand what type of parameters it has and what is the return type of this function. What do you want this function to do? Because when you create an application in TypeScript or in JavaScript, you have to know what that function, you have to know the functions for that application. Like one application, it is going to have several functions. What I mean is like when you create a function for a specific application, you have to know what is the job of that function, what that function accepts, and what goes in the function and what goes out of the function, or what comes out of the function. So into the function, we provide ID, name, and department. But what specifically do we want from this function? We want a number, and that is going to be an ID. Or we want a string, that is going to be a department. Or a string, we want it to be in the name of the employee. Whatever it is, we need to be sure about that. That is why if we type annotate the return type of the function, it is going to force us to be specific, to be precise when it comes to what we want this function to return. And in the process, it is going to make sure that this habit is going to make sure that we actually know why we create a function and we write clean code. We don't write excessive lines. We don't write vague and ambiguous functions. So if you take a look at this function, you immediately know what this function requires and what it outputs. And as functions get more complicated, it is even more of a reason to type annotate the return type of a function. All right, so that is it for this lesson. In the next lesson, we are gonna talk about another type annotation for a function definition, for a function's return type. See you in the next video.